Hello and welcome back to Open Air Atheist. Today I'd like to look at some of verses that are taken out of context in the New Testament, and also how Jesus is painted into the Old Testament by the New Testament, by misapplying verse and context of the verse. First of all, if I can draw your attention to Matthew chapter 2, verse 15. Actually, we'll begin in verses 13 through 15. And they, having departed, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph by a dream, saying, "Rise up, take the child and his mother with you, and flee into Egypt, and be there until I shall tell you, for Herod is about to look for the child in order to destroy him." And having risen up, he took along the child and his mother by night, and withdrew into Egypt. And he was there until the end of Herod, that might be fulfilled that spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." If you got a Christian study Bible, you will see that this is quoted from the Old Testament, from Hosea 11:1 to be exact. You'll also notice that he only quotes part of the verse. Why is that? Well, let's read it. Hosea 11, chapter 1. "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son." First, note that he only quotes half the verse, because if he quoted the whole verse, you could see that it's not talking about Jesus. It's talking about Israel, either as a nation or as the patriarch. Then we have also, it is talking about an exodus from Egypt. Here, Matthew's using it as an entrance to Egypt. Misapplication. So not only taken out of context, so they're obviously dishonest, or grabbing onto anything to try to prove their Messiah. Wishful thinking. Again, the fallacy. Okay, next thing I want to tackle is, well, let's go to another verse. This verse is in the Old Testament, and Jews hate it when I refer to it. We'll just call it the First Testament. Let's go to another verse, often used by Christians to prove Jesus in the Old Testament. Here we go. It's supposed to be talking of his crucifixion here, and this is Psalm 22, beginning in verse 16 through verse 17. "For dogs encompass me, and a company of evildoers encircle me. They have pierced my hands and feet." Now, well, let me read it. "I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me." Now, first of all, note that if you read the context of this whole thing, I mean, most Christians know these verses, but they don't know the context of these verses. David is obviously talking about himself, and if you read through this chapter, you'll see that. Okay. Secondly, you'll see here, "pierced my hands and my feet." The word "pierced" is mistranslated. The word is actually "kor-ari," which I mentioned in a previous video to this one. It's actually like a lion. If you look in the footnotes of your ESV study Bible, it actually admits it. Most modern translations of the Bible agree with the Hebrew translations of the Bible, whereas the King James doesn't. So, "kor-ari" should be translated like a lion. Secondly, we'll see another word, molested, another word molested here, and another thing taken out of context. If you go to Isaiah 53, let's read. Okay. Actually, here, I'm not sure if it's "pierced" no, this one. Basically, here it claims to be talking about Jesus again. The Christians claim that this is talking about Jesus. "Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see, and be satisfied by the knowledge shall the righteous one servant make many accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide a portion among many." Okay. therefore it will find, okay. If you read this, it talks about him being afflicted. It talks about led like a lamb to the slaughter. He opened out his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And generation who considered was cut off from the land of the living, stricken, transgressions of my people. So you see here, but if you read the context, again, if you go just a chapter further, you can see that this is not talking about Jesus. This is talking about the nation of Israel, which is actually what Jewish people believe to this day. And the reason is that the context is so obvious. Because this entire book of Isaiah switches from plural to singular. It switches from talking about Israel as a singular person to a people. It switches back and forth. So this suffering servant is not Jesus, but Israel as a nation. And again, you'll see when it's even talking about in the plural and not talking about when it's talking about Israel specifically as a nation, which it always is, but more blatantly when it refers to it in a plural sense, it uses the same words like afflicted and such. So, I mean, you could argue as a Christian double fulfillment. At the time it was addressed to the people, but now it's actually pointing toward Jesus, and it's a double fulfillment. Well, that's fine, but where's your evidence for this? Okay, do you really expect me to believe that? So there are many other passages I could go to. Unfortunately, this video doesn't have much time left. Many other misquotes. You read in Hebrews, I won't give you the exact, you can look this up yourself, but in Hebrews it talks about how it says, I believe in Leviticus or one of those areas, that without the shedding of blood, there is no atonement for sin. And then it's quoting from a passage, and it doesn't even say that in the passage. Also, if you look at Matthew, it quotes from a verse, this is from Matthew chapter 2, the very last verse, but we'll start here in chapter 20 or verse 22. But hearing that Archelaus reigned over Judea in place, feared to go there, and having been warned by a dream, again, here's another dream again, he departed into parts of Galilee, and coming, he lived in a city called Nazareth, so as to fulfill the spoken word by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. Now, again, it's trying to paint Jesus as this is not an arbitrary event. This is something that was spoken about a long time ago through the prophets of the Old Testament, through the prophets, through the sages. But now you're probably thinking, well, okay, show me. This verse is in there, and it's probably all taken out of context, and they probably didn't quote it half the verse. No, actually, this verse doesn't even exist. You can't even find this in the Old Testament. There's a verse that they think it might, but it's actually no. It's not found anywhere in the Old Testament period. So this verse here, to try to say this was an arbitrary event, this wasn't an arbitrary event, that Jesus shall be called a Nazarene was foretold, is utterly BS. It's not anywhere foretold in the New Testament. So there you have a couple of examples, and believe me, I have a long list. I could go through many more. By the way, this video is mainly directed to reformedevangelist.com, Ryan Dozier, Paul Kaiser. I would love a response from you guys towards these verses that I've quoted in these issues that I've brought up. So get back to me, all right? Peace out.